I'll go ahead and share my screen. So we are, wrong button. We are talking about MoxiEngage, which is the CRM, the Client Relationship Management Tool portion of Moxie. But it's more than that. It's more than just the Client Relationship Management tool. It also helps you track your goals. It helps you set up drip campaigns to your sphere of influence. It helps you set up neighborhood news to your sphere of influence. So it is marketing along with maintaining the relationships with your sphere of influence and tracking your business. And the system also will help you know how many people you need in your pipeline to reach those goals that you can enter. So let me share my screen and we'll jump right in. So before we jump into Engage, I did want to point out the hub, because it is part of Moxie that we don't really have a training on. So I always just like to point it out. So along the top, you can see we have Hub. We have Present, which is our CMA, our competitive market analysis tool. And then we have Engage, which we'll be talking about today. And then how you can get to your website to customize that if you would like to. And we have a training on that coming up shortly. And then we have the directory here with every single agent that works for us in the Schmidt family of companies, Michigan, Ohio, Florida, USVI. They're all found in the directory. So if you're ever looking for somebody, that's a good place to head. And then we have a product called Promote, which we don't really promote ourselves because we have other products available from the brand that we'll be training on next week. But I did want to point out the Hub, which is that first option right here. These are single sign-on opportunities if you want to sign into My CB Desk, or if you're a commercial agent and want to sign into CBC Desk. Our brand new testimonial tree, you can log into here. If you would like to order signs from D Signs, you can do that right from here as well. We also have the opportunity to log into our proprietary list hub, which is provided by the Schmidt family of companies. It's a little bit of a higher version of List Hub than you would get if you would just join as an agent, so that login is there. Then we have our Listings to Leads marketing platform. If you're in Michigan and Ohio, we have Dotloop. If you're in Florida, we have App Files. And then we link through to our vendors, and this is our list. If you're ever looking to submit a virtual open house tour or take further Moxie training, all of those links are right here. So this really is, along with CB Desk, a one-stop shop for all your tools. So I did want to point out that hub because it doesn't really fall into any of our other trainings. And since we're on the 201 level here, I did want to point that out to you guys today. If your single sign-ons don't work, if you click on them and it doesn't auto log you in, please feel free to reach out to your ASC or your RSC, or of course always myself. Usually it's just a little bit of one-time setup that we have to correct, and then we'll get you working on your single sign-in. So if you did take 101 either yesterday or prior, we did go over your account, and that is important because everything in your account feeds all the other products. Your headshot, your bio, your cell phone number, your email, it feeds your presentations, it feeds your sphere of influence, marketing and Engage, and it feeds your website. That's found up here in the upper right corner. So when you click on your headshot, you can go to My Account. Now, because I'm in on the office level admin, I have a lot more options here, so don't worry if you are following along and you see less, but go ahead and click on My Account. Once that takes a moment to load, your screen should look very similar to this. Your headshot should be loaded unless you didn't have one as a new agent. We're waiting on it. And then you have your three tabs here, your personal info, your contact info, and your web info. If you want to update this at any given time, you want to click your pencil right here. And then you can click the camera to update or to load your headshot. And then based on these, you can choose to change your name. You can change your title if you want. Your internal agent ID should be your coldwellbanker.com email address for that single sign-on. Your contact info here, you have a couple different options when it comes to emails, and then your phone. We have a newer feature that if you want to get text from the website, from consumers on your own listings, you can choose to toggle that on. So as long as your cell phone is here in the mobile phone, and you have that checked yes, which it is, it'll be a square if it's not, then that will allow consumers, customers to schedule showings with you via text message, whether they're on their mobile or if they're on a computer and they have a text feature like iMessage or something on their computer. So that's a newer feature that's really nice. And then your web info is your bio. So this will be your bio. You want to make sure it's updated at all times because we all know time moves fast. And then you can link through all of your social media. And again, this populates not only your websites, but it'll populate any of the CMAs that you create and present, any of the buyer tours you create, or if you're using it for a newsletter. So if you are on these social media platforms, make sure you link through to them on your account. so that we can get people going where you want to go, going where you are on the web. Anytime you do make changes, there is a save. It kind of floats along with you as you scroll. You can kind of see that there. And then click save anytime you make changes, because you want to make sure that the system is saving them. It does give you that, hey, good job, you successfully updated your profile, and then you're ready to move on. So now let's jump right into Engage. And again, that is found right up here at the top. So when you click on Engage, it's going to load you into your platform. Now I do need to do a quick toggle, because when I launch in, I'm going to launch into a manager dashboard. This is not what you will see. So if, give me a second. This is what you would see as an agent. So it is your agent dashboard. So this is really meant to be like a personal assistant. It tells you the 5 people you should call that day, or email, or set up on neighborhood news, or set them up on campaigns. It really helps you stay in flow with your sphere of influence. And if you've taken 101, you'll realize that if you put your contacts into your Gmail account, they will automatically sync over to Engage. So all of the contacts that you have in Gmail sync over into Engage. You can add people, and we'll cover that in a minute, but it does work on a sync so that you're not having to manually add all of your customers, all of your sphere of influence here into Engage. So it gives you these flow, and you can see mine's more of a test account. I'm not in sales, so mine are pretty much just junk leads, because it's just coming over from testing purposes. But you can see that maybe you saw this person at the grocery store yesterday and they come up in your flow, but you've already talked to them. So what you can do is add a note. You can just say that you have already talked to them. You can do that by going right into the account, or right from this screen, you can choose any of these options. You can set them up on a campaign. You can set them up on a neighborhood news. You can send them a quick email, or if you have their home address, you can get their mailing address right there. But say you did just see them, you don't need to talk to them again. You can click skip, and the system will automatically give you another person that you can contact that day. We all know the secret sauce, right? 5 people a day, 5 days a week, you will be successful in real estate. You just have to make those contacts. If you click on the cog in the upper right corner, and anytime you see that cog in the Moxie platform, here's one, here's one, here's one, that means you have customization options. So when you click on that, you can see the cadence. So if your sphere is smaller, maybe you're newer in the business, maybe you have a smaller sphere, that's okay. You can choose every 30 days so that it's rolling through, so that you're contacting them more frequently, hopefully getting that business, because now they know you're in real estate, so you want to stay in front of them. If you've been in the business a little bit longer, or if you're coming from a different kind of industry where you brought a good sphere with you, you could choose 60 days, and again, you have 90 days. And then you can choose the people that you want to show up in that flow. Personal, we all know, is family members, maybe your priest, maybe your child's teacher. They're still in your sphere, but you may not want to reach out to them in this cadence, so you can choose to not have them show up. Same with collaborators. Your collaborators are your title, your mortgage, your insurance, any of those people that are helping you with your consumers in the home buying process or selling process, but they're not necessarily ever going to use you in real estate because they're a collaborator. So you can choose to not mark them as well. So you have that opportunity to have those people show up in your rotation or not to. So again, we got there from doing the cog right here. Further, because this does sync with your Gmail, your calendar will sync over. So again, this really is meant to be that personal assistant, right? Log in every morning, maybe you log in the afternoon, depending on what your time blocking, your cadence is for your day. Your calendar will sync right over to here, so you're not flipping back and forth on different platforms to see what kind of availability you have. Furthermore, if you keep scrolling, the activity feed will show you, once you set up some of these products like campaigns and neighborhood news, as your consumer is engaging with those products, that activity will show up here. You can add tasks so that you know you can stay on task. Maybe it's a Monday and you know on Wednesday you need to reach out to Mr. Homebuyer because you saw him over the weekend and he said, hey, reach out to me on Wednesday. So if you don't want to put it on your calendar, you can put it on your task list here. Or maybe you really need to send out those 5 flyers or those 20 flyers or those 25 flyers that you've been meaning to get to and you have yet to connect to the marketing group to help you. You can put that as a task. Maybe you don't have time today, but when you log in tomorrow, it'll still be on your task list and you can get that done and mark it off. Your sales flow is what's going to help you get to that goal. So if you set your CGI goal, which we'll talk about in a minute, this will help you. You need so many people in marketing, so many people as prospects, so many actives, and so many in pending to help you reach your yearly goal. And Moxie was designed to help you get there. It'll help you track those. And when we jump into an actual contact card, I'll show you how you can put them in the flow. And then it'll track your goal. What's your GCI goal? Are you tracking towards it? Engage is synced over to your MLSs. So your local MLS, you'll put the data into there, listing, sales, whatever it might be, it syncs over to Moxie. So if you have a pending, it'll show up in here as a pending. Once you have a closing, it'll show up as a closing and it'll notate that GCI for you. Won't notate company dollar, won't notate anything like that. It will just notate the GCI. So if you had a 3% side, it'll show that 3% on here. So you can track to your GCI goal. It also will track your year-to-date stats, and your listings and your solds will be here as well. This is all customizable. So if you don't want your stay in flow to show up first, maybe you're like me and you need a full cup of coffee before your brain even functions, and you're like, I just want to see what my day looks like first. You have the opportunity to toggle these to show up how you want to see them. So as you're scrolling, you see them in the order you want to. Maybe you want your activity feed first. Maybe you want to see who did what yesterday so that you can build out your calls. Maybe your stay in flow doesn't have anybody new because maybe you're still building your sphere, but you've already sent out some stuff, so you want to see your activity feed because maybe John Doe opened neighborhood news. So it'd be a great opportunity to call him and say, hey, I noticed you opened the neighborhood news. Do you have any questions for me? Is there anything that you want me to point out? Is there any further information you want? That can be a really good way to use this product. So again, these can be customized however you see fit that works for your day, for your flow. If you log into Engage for the first time and you get the all annoying spinny that says still syncing, please reach out. There are two different ways you can sync to MoxiEngage. One is your Coldwell Banker, Century 21, or Elite Sotheby's International Realty email that's provided to you. CB Schmidt, Ohio, CB Great Lakes, CBS MFL, CB Paradise, or USVI. Those will sync over because they are Gmail accounts. However, if you have all of your contacts and all of your sphere in your Gmail, so I sell real estate at gmail.com or Traverse City Real Estate at gmail.com, we can use that as a sync email. However, when our amazing RSCs and agent onboarding people put you in the system, they may not know that up front. It does not matter because we can work with the support team at Moxie to get that updated. So if you log in there and you see a sync error, don't hesitate to reach out to your ASC, your RSC, or myself, and we'll make sure that we get that corrected so that you can sync your contacts over, because we want the product to work for you. So we don't mandate that you use the email we provide to you. You can use a gmail.com. However, the way Moxie is built at this time, anything outside of Gmail, Hotmail, Yahoo, AOL, none of those will sync over. But that's okay too, because we do provide you with that Gmail account. We can get you fully set up. We can help you get your contacts in so that they sync over. So don't hesitate to reach out if that does not work. So this is your dashboard. So we're in Engage. We went to dashboard, and this is the information we saw. If you want to see all of your contacts that you have in here, you can go to People and My People. Once that loads, it's going to look like pretty much any other system that has contacts in it. It's going to give you the chance to filter. You can edit groups. You can get to the Categorize Wizard. You can filter to see what you want. Any labels or contact lists, whatever you want to call it, Google calls them labels, will come over with the sync. So if you have a group for your son's PTO, if you have a group for the newsletters you send, if you have a group for past buyers, those can all be categorized right here in Moxie for ease of use for you. You can also search by name, just like you would in any other contact list, and it'll pull up anybody with that last name. You can also individually add people. So if you if you already did the sync to get all your contacts over, and you met somebody at an open house, or you met somebody in line at the grocery store, and you just want to add one person, you can do that right here by clicking Add People. You put in all their pertinent information, as much or as little as you want. You can designate them if they are a collaborator or personal, so that maybe they don't show up in your flow. Maybe it's your past buyer or seller. Maybe for some reason they didn't come over in the sync because you didn't have them in your email. You can do that too. And then for any managers on the call, you can also assign them as a recruit so they can be used in Moxie Talent. But that is how you can add individually people that don't come over from the sync. This is our overview. So the first tab I showed you was My People, and then we talked about adding people. So this button and this button do the same thing. But then we have our overview here. So just like our sales flow from our dashboard, this will give you recommended actions here as well. And just like the dashboard, you can choose to skip if you want to, and it'll give you somebody else. So some people like the dashboard because of the whole flow. Some people want to concentrate on just those contacts so they can go into overview. So if we go back into My People, based on the number of contacts you have, and you can see I have just over 6,000, it doesn't always take that long to switch back and forth to screens. It just depends on how much data that you have in there. The next thing I want to talk about is that Categorize Wizard, because one of the hardest things with utilizing our sphere in which we want to be successful is just organizing it. It's super hard, right? You just dump them in, you're on the fly, you're busy, you want to make sure you don't lose them, so you just quickly throw them into your contacts, then you do the sync to Moxie, and they're all just kind of in there all jumbled up. Well, this Categorize Wizard really is meant to help you organize your sphere of influence so that you can utilize the system. So you can see this looks a lot like the dashboard, but you have options. So obviously this is a test, so obviously it's a non-client. So this is a good one to show you this. So non-client, it could be personal. Maybe it's your dentist, maybe it's your doctor. Doesn't mean they're not in your sphere, right? Because what do they have? They have friends that may be in real estate or may have a real estate need. So it doesn't necessarily mean you don't want them in here. You just want to make sure that you know who they are in your life. Same thing with collaborator. Maybe it's your title person. Maybe it's Woodland Title. Maybe it's Coast One Mortgage. Not quite sure, but if it's a collaborator that helps you in the real estate business, you can mark them as such. You also have the opportunity to remove them if you want to. Sometimes we all know we have old contacts. This test one's a good example. So if it's really just not a contact, or maybe you realize it's a bad email, you can go ahead and remove. Always ask you, are you sure? You can click yes, and then it'll tell you you're removed. And then you can move on to the next person. So if you choose to categorize them as a client, when you click on client, you have a lot of other options. You can create a marketing plan right from here, which will give you certain tasks that will allow you to stay in touch with them. You can make them a seller prospect, which is a different set of tasks, or you can make them a buyer prospect, which again is a third set of tasks. So based on where they're at in their real estate needs, the system will give you a set of tasks, which can be customized, that will help you stay in touch with them. The problem with our sphere of influence, even though there are sphere of influence, the average American knows up to 8 real estate agents. It's a lot of real estate agents. So typically, when you stay in touch with them, you come to mind first, and that's what we want to do. So that's why systems like MoxiEngage are super important for that sphere of influence marketing, so that you are staying in front of them when that real estate need comes up. So we will not do this to Corey because he's an agent with us in Florida, and I don't want to muck up his inbox, but let's find a different one that we can choose. We'll go ahead and do this one. So I'm going to go ahead and just create marketing plan. And from there you can choose, is it a past seller? Is it a past buyer? Maybe they bought and sold from you. Or maybe it's none of those. And then you can create a simple customized plan for yourself that will allow you to add the tasks that you want to see. I'm not going to quite do that yet because we're going to jump into an actual contact, so I'll be able to explain that a little bit further. Just want to make sure I'm staying on my topics. Sure enough. So as you go through here, you can keep clicking show me more. So maybe you pour a glass of wine at night and you sit down and you do 20 at a time. And then the next evening, maybe you do 20 more. Or maybe your buyer canceled, so you have a free 45 minutes, so maybe you jump in and categorize them. Trust me, it's going to be worth the time that you spend, because when you set up campaigns, whether it's a holiday drip campaign, or if you're setting up neighborhood news, or if you're sending out a newsletter, once you have them categorized, you'll make sure that you're getting the data that you want to share over to the correct people. And for some reason, my show me more doesn't want to load. Could quite possibly be on my Wi-Fi at home. But in theory, when you click show more, it will show you more people so that you can continue to categorize these. And in the essence of time, I'm not going to do a refresh. We're going to jump into people. You can get to your calendar just like you see on the dashboard here by clicking on calendar, but that's all about, we're going to touch on that. It's basically the same calendar that you run in your Gmail. So back to people and back to my people. So I'm going to pull up a test person, which is myself, and I'm going to show you how you can set up a few things like neighborhood news and faves and saves right within the contact card. There's also a few actions that you can do quickly from here without actually opening up that contact card. So if you hover over here, you can see you can log activity. So maybe that's when you ran into them in the grocery store, or maybe you sent them a postcard or a holiday card, whatever it might be. You can log that activity right there. You can use the system to call them. So if you're on your mobile site, which MoxiEngage on your PC looks just like it does on your mobile device, and you click on that from your mobile device, or if you have a calling system on your PC, that will allow you to call them from the system. You can also click on this and send them an email. If you're logging a call or emailing them, it automatically will go over into their activity card so that you can track that. So in a week, if you pull up that person to see if you need to contact them, it'll notate that you did so on such and such date. So to click on the person, you hover over the name until you get the hand. In Moxie, anytime you have the arrow or the cursor turn into a hand, it's a clickable link. So if you're trying to figure that out, anytime it turns into a hand, that's when it's a clickable link. That works for most browser type things, but I always like to point that out because it's not always clear. So anytime you have a hand, you have a clickable link. So when you have this person up, if you've not categorized them from the wizard and you want to set them into a marketing plan, you can do so. This particular person's already in marketing, so it pulled in these tasks already. So set the listing announcement subscription. I can show you to do that. Make a personal phone call, right? Real estate, along with all this technology, really is that relationship type of situation. This is just meant to help you track that relationship with your sphere of influence. And then it goes through all of these tasks. At the time you've either completed these tasks or maybe you've only done one task and they're ready to move on as a prospect, you click this button to make them a prospect. This will allow you to type as a buyer or a seller. If you have that transaction ready to name that, you can do so here. If you have an MLS number, great. If not, that's okay too. You can put in the commission so it helps track on your goal, but you don't have to at this point as well. And this is where you can integrate with dot loop, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then you always have the ability to put in additional details. If you realize you're not quite ready for this step, you can just click cancel and it'll take them back into the marketing. When you click on their profile over here, it gives them all the pertinent information, their email, their address. If you put in their instant messaging or whatnot, any information that you put in here will show up here at any time. You can edit it. If it is something for contact, you always have the quick option to send them an email, or if it's a phone number, to call them right from the system. This is where your notes section will come up. I don't have any notes in here right now, so there's nothing in there. But once you put those notes, if you did notate, you called them outside of the system or you ran into them, this is where the notes would show up. The activity is going to track here. If they were sent a neighborhood news, if they were sent a campaign, any notes that you put in will show up right here in the activity section here. And then if you have them set up on faves and saves, those will show up here. None are set up at this time because we're going to show you here in a minute how to do so. Keep scrolling to the left. It's always going to show you where in that they are. Are they in marketing? Are they in prospect? Are they active? Are they pending? Any subscriptions they're set up will show here, and you can see this particular one is on 2. And then any groups that they're part of will show here. At any point, you can always remove them from Engage if you want to. And you can always send a copy of that profile to somebody else. So if you're working on a team, or if you have a real hot prospect but you're going out of town and you have a fellow realtor helping you, you can always send a copy of that profile over to them so that they can help track that for you while you're out. Or again, if you're working on a team and you're co-working with this particular person, you can do that as well. So we're going to click back on this. So if they have a headshot, if this particular person has their own Gmail account or whatnot, and they have a headshot in the system, that will show up here. You aren't at this time able to load one in for a client, but if they have one as part of their account, whether it's a Moxie account as a consumer that they created to search for houses, or if it's part of their Gmail account, then a headshot will show up there. So we're going to go back into the tasks list by going here to marketing. And these are the task lists that the system sets forward for you. But you can customize these. You can customize these by client, or you can customize them for all of your clients in Moxie. So in this particular client, you can click Add Task. It'll let you name it, what the description is, how long it should take, what the due date is, and if you want to add it to your calendar. I very much work out of my inbox and my calendar, so I always add everything as a calendar so that I can make sure that I keep myself on task. So I would always want to add it to my calendar. So you can add an individual task to that client. You can also, by clicking on this, decide to edit it. So maybe you want to do this at a different time, so you can change the date. You can always mark it as done if you've gotten that done. Or if you click more, you can always delete it if you want. Just like adding, you can, it's like if you add a new task, you can add it to your calendar, or you can delegate it to somebody else. Maybe you have an assistant with a Moxie account. Maybe you are part of a team. So you can delegate that task out. Again, when you click on edit, it's going to look just like it looked when you wanted to add. You can edit the information that you want, and then if you make changes, you just want to click save. But we're going to go ahead and click cancel. Again, you can always change the date if you want to, and then if you've done this, you can click done, and it'll come off your task list, and it'll go over to activity so that you know. I do recommend using the tasks as set forth in the system until you're used to it. At that point, you can change those standard tasks so that every time you get a new person, whether they're in marketing, a prospect as a buyer or seller, it'll update it to customize it to your task list. And you do that right from here, right from the cog. So when you click on the cog, you can go to Engage Settings. And then from here, you want to go to Task Manager. Oops, let it load. Task Manager. And then this is where you can click Customize. So you have two different marketing plans. You have your Leads marketing plans, which currently has 11. You have your marketing plan, which is 9. And then you have your sales plan, both for buyer and seller, 44 tasks and 61 tasks. But again, when you click on Customize, you can customize these. You can delete tasks. You can add tasks that are specific to your flow, how you operate, or you can rearrange them. So maybe you don't make the phone call first and you do want to do an email first. You can rearrange that. When you do these changes from the cog, from the settings, going forward, anybody you add to that task list, to that notating, whether it's a buyer or a seller or a prospect or a marketing, they will get that customized list of tasks. Or like we showed you first, you can customize it for each individual consumer. So based on how you want to use the system, you have a lot of options. If you are new in the business and you're not quite sure, I do recommend just leaving it as is until you get more familiar with it. As you see things like, oh, I don't do that, or I want this, and if you're making the change in your consumer, head over to that cog, go into your task manager and update that so that your template is set to the way that you want to see it used for every single person. Now we're going to go back into people and my people. And we're going to let that load real quick there. So you have, excuse me. Like I said, you can filter from in here. You can see filter by who's missing a phone number. So maybe you're working that day on getting your sphere of influence up to snuff and you want to see which phone numbers you're missing so that you can go through your other contacts and get those updated. You can filter by a lot of different things in here, just depending on how much data comes over from your initial sync from your email account, whether it's your @gmail.com or your @CB Great Lakes, CB Schmidt Ohio, CB Florida Homes, whatever it might be. The last tab right here is called Goals. So we have talked about this a little bit from the dashboard, but this is where you can go in to change your goals, to see your goals tracking. And again, this is all fed from your MLS. When you first log in to Engage after your first initial sync, and keep in mind if you're seeing a spinning circle of death, make sure you reach out because we do have to get that fixed. But once it's synced and you logged in, it's going to pop up and ask you if you want to put your goal in. You can always defer it. If you're not quite ready, you can always defer it, and then you can always go back in. If you put one in, you can always tweak it at a later date. You can do so by clicking the little cog. Again, the cog is always your settings right here, and go to your GCI goal. You can see we launched Moxie in late 2019, so that's the beginning of the years here that we have for goals, so that you can always go back and see your old goals. If you've been with us for a while, or if you're a new agent, you'll want to jump in and set your 2022 goals. So this is where that number can be changed. If you're curious as to exactly what that means, well, you can click on the little guy down here, and it's going to say it's your gross commission income is how much total commission you want to make this year. So again, this is not based on company dollar or split or anything like that. It's straight GCI, sales volume times whatever your commission rate is. The standard commission rate is, if we go back to the cog and go to commission rate, the standard that Moxie pulls in is 3%. Now I know that varies on market, varies on region, varies on everywhere we operate. So the system will tally based on that 3%. So if you know in your market the average commission rate is 2.5, you can update that in the system right from the cog, so that every time you have a closing and your commission comes over for your goals, it'll tally on the 2.5% as opposed to the 3. The 3 is the standard that does default in the Moxie system. So that's where you get to. We're in Engage, we're in Goals, we go to Commission Rate, and that's where you can change that. And then GCI Goal is where you can update that goal. So if you really don't know and you just want that annoying pop-up to stop coming up every time you jump into Engage, put 0, put 100, put whatever you want. You can always go back and change that at a later date. Anytime you go into the cogs, there's always these great tours. So if you've taken trainings, if it's, you get busy, you get a buyer, great. Even better, you get a listing, and you forget, you can always come back here to the tours. So those are really great and really does help refresh the content that we share on these trainings. So make sure you head to the tour. Along with that is the Help Center. It's always available from the cogs. It's always that pink button on your screen. So you can always get to the Help Center if you want to as well. So on the goals, not only will it track for your goals, it pulls over all your closed transactions. It's going to do it by buyer and by seller, and it's going to give you the details over here. Now, I don't sell. I leave that to my husband. So we have zeros across the board here. So if you've transacted, this does pull over, like I said, from your MLS. You'll see the data in here. The first category is closed. The second one is active and pendings. And then your prospects, your GCI forecast, and comparable average. So again, this will track to your MLS what this data is if the MLS is sharing the data. So this is how this operates right here. If it's not connected, if it's showing you like, hey, you know you had a closing and it's not showing up, please reach out and let us know. There are a few settings that we need to make sure are correct, and usually our amazing staff gets those, but once in a while, maybe you don't have your MLS number right away, and they set you up in Moxie, and so there's sometimes those setups that we just have to make sure that we correct. So if you're seeing something that doesn't quite look right, make sure you reach out to your ASCs, your RSCs, or myself. So I've been talking for a hot second, so let me open the chat just to make sure I didn't miss any questions. I don't see any in there, so we're going to keep trugging along. So that was a higher overview of everything that was covered in 101, maybe a little bit more in depth on some of it, but we are going to jump over to some new content. So if you sat through 101, you've probably not heard this information, or maybe you have. We're all different trainers and we all work at a different cadence. So we will cover now our dot loop if you're in Michigan or Ohio, and if you're not, I apologize, it will go fast. Integration, our Zillow integration, then I'll actually show you how to set up those fave saves, neighborhood news, and just listed and just solds. And then we'll leave it open for questions, and then we'll wrap. So we're going to head back into our upper right corner. It should be your headshot. If you've not yet loaded your headshot, it'll be your initial, and we're going to go back to my account. So when we first started, we went and talked about our hub, which is our links, our single sign-on opportunities. So we are talking about how to integrate not only dot-loop for Michigan and Ohio, but also Zillow. So we know we have our great testimonial tree reviews, if you want to include those, but a lot of our agents already have reviews on Zillow, and you can connect those to Moxie as well. So we're back into our account. So again, we clicked on the upper right, we clicked into my account. We first talked about this, but now we're going to come over here to the left. You will not have a management tool, so yours will end here at agent tools. So we're going to click on agent tools, and we're going to go down to integrated tools. You should see two options here. We have dot-loop and we have Zillow. So when we were in that contact card in Engage, you saw the opportunity to connect to dot-loop right from the contact card as you are making them a prospect. Whether they signed a buyer's agreement or they signed a listing contract, you can then make the loop right from there. And we have a question, which I'm going to cover in just a moment. So great question, Jessica. Just one moment. We'll get to that. So the first time there's a one-step one-step setup that you have to do. Once you do this the first time, it'll be integrated and you don't have to do it again. So again, we are in My Account, and then we came over to Agent Tools and Integrated Tools. All you have to do is click Connect Account. It'll allow you to log into Dotloop, and then you will be integrated into Dotloop. You'll be able to create loops from your contact cards right in Engage. And again, that's a one-time thing. Once you do it once, you don't have to worry about it again. Same thing with Zillow. You all get free accounts on Zillow. You want to make sure that you log into it and make sure that you get your profile set up so that your listings will come over tagged as you. You'll have your contact information, your headshot. And then if you are getting reviews, those will show up on your Moxie sites if you integrate it right here. So the one time that you have to do this, you want to click Activate. It's going to allow you to put in your Zillow email address. So whatever email address you used when you logged into Zillow for the first time, that's the email address you use there. And then you click Save. Those reviews from Zillow will then come over into Moxie along with the testimonial tree reviews that you've been using. Now, Jessica's question was, will Google reviews be integrated in the future? Not that we are aware of at this time, Jessica, but there is a way that you can use your website to iframe your Google page if you choose to. So in your website, it is a WordPress website, and it does give us an opportunity to link through to other pages. So we can help you set that up, or if you come back to the website training, they'll cover that a little bit. So there is a workaround, but there is no actual integration at this time. So that's a great question. So again, from your account, you want to go to Agent Tools and then Integrated Tools, and this is a one-time thing. Once you've set it up once, it'll be done for you. Now we're going to talk a little bit about neighborhood news, which I myself find is an amazing product, and it's actually one of the most clicked products that Moxie has. So between CMAs and newsletters and campaigns, neighborhood news is one of the most utilized tools that's sent out to our sphere. So we're going to go back into Engage here. Again, ignore that dashboard. Your dashboard will look just like this. I'm going to go into a particular person, and again, I'm just going to use my test account. So the last person that you've contact card you were in will show up at the top because that's how I have it sorted by. But you can sort by any of these things: first name, last name, recently added, recently modified. So that's why mine is coming up that way, because I have it on recently viewed. So we're going to jump right back into that. And then we're going to talk about neighborhood news. So that's what the system considers a subscription. So you want to click Add. And there's two different ways you can do this. There's the neighborhood news, and then there's listing announcements. So if you want your consumer, your sphere, to get an email every time you have a new listing or a sold, you can set them up right here on listing announcements. The other one is more market-driven data, and that's neighborhood news. So listing announcements are great, right? You always want your consumers to know what you're listing, what you're selling, letting them know that you are active in real estate, that you're transacting, whatever it might be. So that's an important option there for listing announcements. And that's just a real simple email. Hey, this is my new listing, or hey, I just sold this. So that is a really great way to stay in front of your sphere. Especially if you're working with a new buyer. Maybe they just decided that, oh, I'm thinking I might want to move to Traverse City, or I'm thinking I want to move to Brecksville, Ohio, or maybe I want to move to Port St. Lucie, Florida. You can set them up on the neighborhood news so that once a month they're getting data from you, actually from your MLS. So it's not a Zillow estimate or anything. It's actually from your MLS, so it's real data. And it goes to them without you having to do it. So it's a one-time setup, and then they'll continue to get it until either they unsubscribe or you go in and take that off. So again, we are in the contact card and we are under subscriptions, and then this is neighborhood news. So we want to click Add Subscription. Now, if they're just real new into the market, they're not real sure where they want to stay, they're not even real sure if they can get pre-approved, so they're just putting their toe in, you can do a quick neighborhood news. This will give them data from an entire MLS. So you just pick the MLS that you want, and the system will send them the data on that. If they've been in the market, or if they're a second-time home buyer, or they really know what they want, you can set them up in a customized search. So I'm going to show you that real quick. So you just click Go. And then you can put in a zip code here, just like you would on the zip codes, but this really is meant to be granular. So what you can do is for example, put in an address, and then you can see it'll pull up on the map, and then what you can do is draw on that map by clicking Quick Draw. So you can really pinpoint a granular area based on the information that you want to choose. You can always clear that if you want to redraw it, and you can always exit if that's a good thing. You can also do it by school zone. So you can get as wide as you want, or you can get as granular as you want with this neighborhood news. And again, if they're new in the market and not sure what they want, you want to go wider. If they have a real specific idea of what they want, you want to go more granular. Along with area, you also have the option to choose bed and baths, and filters like single family, condos, townhouses, manufactured, multifamily, and then your square footage. The more narrow you get, obviously the less data that will be sent out because there's just not as much in there. So just based on what your consumer need is how you want to set this up. Once you have these, and just like if you've sat through a present training, they're always color coded, active's always green, red's always sold. You click next. This is because you're in that contact card. This particular email came up. That's my email from that custom. So click next there. It will always tell you what that filter is so that you are aware of what you're sending out, and then it gives you a preview. So this is what the email will look like. It's always going to be branded to you and your DBA, and you and your headshot and your email and your phone number. Then the neighborhood news, which I probably went too granular here, so let me step back just a second and we'll redo this. We'll get it a little bit bigger. Here we go. Just to give you an idea of the kind of information that's sent out. And again, this is a one-time setup for each customer. So once you set this up, you can set it up for multiple customers at one time if you choose to. You don't have to worry about it. It goes out 1 month from the day of when you set it up. So it doesn't all go out on the 1st, or they don't all go on the 30th. If you set it up on whatever today is, the 6th, it's going to go out in 30 days. So if you set up one tomorrow on the 7th for another customer, they're going to get theirs 30 days from then. So you can see, again, always branded to you. Always will pull in the listings. We'll map them out. We'll give them all this data. Then it gives them the trends, the number of listings in that area, the median price, market changes in the past 12 months, median sold prices, market changes month over month. All of this data is sent to them because what's the number one question that you get in the real estate business? How's the market? This can be set up and sent out to your sphere so that it's going to them proactively. And then when you go into your dashboard and see that they were sent it, you can give them a call and ask if they have any questions about it. So again, this is one of the most opened products across not even Schmidt, but across all of Moxie users. Neighborhood News is one of the most open products. And then once you're here, you click send to that consumer. And then again, it'll send to them right away. And then it'll send to them every 30 days. When you go back into subscriptions, let me back up a screen. When you go back into subscriptions, any subscription that, oops, I didn't click on the right spot. Any subscriptions? Give that a minute to load. You can always go back in and modify them. So if you call the consumer because you saw they open it and you have a conversation, they're like, wow, that's great, but I really am curious about the properties around such and such lake. You can say, oh, I can modify that for you. So you can always go back in and make sure that you switch that neighborhood news to how they want to see it. And of course, it's not quite working for me right now, so we will go ahead and move on to faves and saves. But again, that is neighborhood news. If you want to add a new one, you click add. You can always add to the listing announcements, which is important, I think, for every consumer, regardless, just because they want to know what you're doing in your business. And then you have the opportunity to go into neighborhood news. And again, you can set up the quick one by zip code, or you can get more granular by really choosing your criteria. Faves and saves is a little bit different, because it's not just market data, it's actual listings. You know, if you set them up in the MLS because they have very specific parameters of a particular house they're looking for as a buyer, probably best to use the MLS. If they have a little bit of a broader sense of what they're looking for, faves and saves is a great way, because what you'll be able to see is once they're in the system looking at houses themselves, if they favorite something or if they save something or if they share it with somebody else, it's going to track it for you so that you can see what they're really looking at, what they're really interested in. So from faves and saves right here, you can see there's 0. So I have this particular test account has no faves and no saves. You can create up a search for them. Now your consumer can do this for themselves when they log into the consumer facing side of our websites, but you as their agent can do it for them. So you click create search. It's going to look very similar to the way that you set up neighborhood news. But this is going to send them actual listings and none of the market data. So you can see you can draw on the map. You can do it from an area. You can do price, beds and baths, filters. A lot more filters are available here than they are in the neighborhood news. You can send sold if you want to, but again, if they're buying in the market, they might not want to see sold, right? It's just going to be white noise for them. So you might want to choose just active. You can exclude pendings as well if you want. And then you can choose single family, townhouse. Maybe they don't want land, farm and ranch, multifamily. They're just looking for somewhere to live, don't want manufactured. You have that opportunity. If they're looking for waterfront, views, any of these options, you can do this. Again, all of this data comes over from the MLS. Once you click apply, it'll give you the listings. You can click email and settings. This is a preview of what the email will look like. Of course, right here will be your information, your headshot, your name, and your brokerage will be your logo. You can rename the name of the search so that when you go back, you'll know what it is. Again, that's for you to see. You can change the email message. It does default to this, but you can update that. And then you can select your frequency. Once a day may be a little bit aggressive, especially if they're new in the market. Maybe they're not quite pre-approved. Maybe they just kind of want to see what's out there. So maybe you want to do it weekly. Hourly is really aggressive. And then there's never. And the reason why never is set up on here is because sometimes you'll set up on the search and they want to pause. Maybe they're going on vacation. Maybe they're like, I just get too much email. I don't want to get that right now. But you don't have to get rid of the search that you set up for them because maybe historically you want to go back and see it. So you can choose to never send updates on it. They will get it the initial time, but they won't get it going forward. But you can come back in here to stop it at any time too. If you have a buyer that's really granular, really looking for a specific property, and there's just not that much out there, you can choose to still send them an email by clicking right here. Basically, they'll get an email that says, hey, I'm still thinking of you. I'm still looking at all the data, but there's just nothing on the market for you, which right now with our inventory levels kind of happens, right? Unfortunate. So maybe you set them up the market and the neighborhood news so they're getting all that data, but then you can also set them up on this so that when a new listing does come on the market, they'll get it. But you're still communicating with them even if there's not. So that is an option there as well. Once you have this set up the way that you want to see it, you click Save and Send. Now this will show up here. So again, I'm in that particular contact card. I'm in Faves and Saves. You can always view that and you can always edit it. Now, if that consumer is on the site, maybe you sent them the search, maybe they jumped in and they're like, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I love it. I want to live there. And they click the little heart that's on our websites, that'll show up in the faves so that you'll be able to notate that. It'll also show up in your dashboard in that activity feed that I showed you so that you really can track these consumers right from your dashboard. A lot of work to do in the contact card if you want to set them up on these particular products, but anytime they have activity, it will show up on that dashboard. Check for questions. Don't see any. So just one more topic and then we'll wrap. So we talked about neighborhood news. We talked about faves and saves. So there's one more way that you can market to your sphere in MoxiEngage, and that's our campaigns. So we are still, let me scroll up, we are still in Engage, and we are still on this menu bar. We talked about the dashboard. We talked about our people, quickly talked about calendar, talked about our goals. So our last option here is campaigns. If you've already had a campaign set up, it'll show up here. If you're newer, probably don't have one, it's going to show up right here, add from library. That's how you can start using the system. And that's why the categories are so important, is because you may want to set a certain campaign up for some people, but not others. So you can do this by group, by category, so that you don't have to worry that you're sending something to the wrong people. So when you click add from library, this will show you the options that you have. So you can see here, campaigns. We have our brand new 2022, believe it or not, seasonal home campaign, our 2022 holiday campaign, pet version, super cute. And then we have our normal 2022 holiday campaign. And then we have recruiting campaigns in here. We have seasonal home maintenance. We have a lot of different campaigns. I have more than you'll see, but here there's a buyer warm prospects and there's a seller warm prospects, and then there's a new lead as well. So you'll have different campaigns that you can see. If you want to preview them, you want to click preview. This will show you all of the e-cards and when they're set to set out. Obviously, it's a holiday campaign, so it's not based on a certain cadence. It's based on an actual date. But you can see what the emails will look like. There's always, this particular one's the pet, so it's a super cute picture of a pet, always branded to you, and then the content's right here, and it will show you all of these. You can click Add to Campaigns. That will pull it into your Moxie so that you can then set up your consumers to be on it, and then you can customize it as well. So you can see it pulled it over to here, and it's going to show up as a waiting setup because it's not quite been set up yet. You can see that there's no people signed up for it. But once you start using the product, it really will track for you. I'm trying to show you one of these. It's going to track for you on how many people were opening those. And obviously my numbers are very low because this is just a test account. But then you'll be able to track and see how that campaign is being utilized. Is nobody opening it? Well, maybe you don't use it next year. Is everybody opening it? Well, maybe you add more people. So it really will let you track the usage of that campaign, which is super helpful. So if we go to a waiting setup, you'll see the one that I just pulled in, the 2022 holiday campaign. When you click on it, and let it sit and spin. Again, just like it did in the preview, it's going to pull up the cards that are part of that. Some of these cards are edible so that you can actually make changes to them. Some things like the holiday ones are not. So it's just based on that campaign. But you can always edit the schedule if you want to. So say that you don't want to send out the Flag Day one, you can delete that. Or if you want to change the date on it, maybe you want it to go out the day before, 4th of July, maybe people are busy the day of, maybe you want it to go out the day before, so you can change the date on that. And again, you can always remove it. So you do have some customization, even if you can't change the actual email, you can customize the campaign to show how you want it to show. I'm going to go ahead and finish later. I did have a question come up, so let me take a look. Good question, Mike. At this time, we're not allowed to do multiple zip codes in neighborhood news. You can draw on the map around more than one zip code. You'd have to zoom out and then draw around the map in a wider range. Or you can set up individual neighborhood news per zip code. But right now, one neighborhood news cannot have multiple zip codes by typing the zip code. You would have to do it by drawing on the map. So that's a great question. Or you can set up multiple emails so that it's tracking just that zip code for the consumer. So that's your two options there. Great question, though. Well, we have about 4 minutes left, and that's what I had for you guys today. If there's any questions, feel free to unmute or type them in the chat box. As always, head to schmidtvideoclassroom.com for more training. You can always go to Schmidt Resources. There's a Moxie tab in there that has other training on it. As we talked about, there is our help button on each screen in Moxie, whether you're in Present, Engage, Websites, doesn't matter where you are at, it's always there. So feel free to reach out to that team, reach out to our team if you need any help. We truly appreciate you attending training today. I don't see any other questions. So thank you guys so much. As always, after the fact, if something comes up as you are working in the system, don't hesitate to reach out. Appreciate your time today. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.